Don't put so much pressure on yourself to have it all right now. There may be situations where work is really heavy this week. You got to do a ton of stuff at work. Maybe your personal side's going to have to sacrifice a little bit here and there. You can have it all, but you just probably can't have it all at the same time.
Welcome to Get Real, Get Results. I'm your host, Chantell Preston. I've got over 2 decades of experience in healthcare operations, project management, and consulting, and I've navigated the dance of career advancement and personal satisfaction firsthand. Get Real, Get Results is your go-to resource for navigating the complexities of a modern-day success without sacrificing your well-being. So buckle up and get ready to challenge the status quo, shatter limiting beliefs, and embark on a transformative journey toward a more authentic, balanced, and fulfilling life. This is Get Real, Get Results, and I'm honored to have you join me.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Chantell Preston. I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about life. I'm really passionate about helping people create their own destinies, being their own advocate, getting real with their life so they can live their best life. So thanks for joining us. You're going to see a lot of topics kind of threaded throughout my podcast just because there's really important topics to review and to look at. But first of all, let's start with my journey. Interesting journey at 18. Who knows what we're going to be in life, right? I wanted to be a teacher. I couldn't wait. I wanted to educate the community and educate the youth of tomorrow. However, my father made a great comment to me. He said, "You're going to do what? I'm spending all this money for what?" And he said, "If you're not business, you're not shit in this world." And so it really changed my trajectory. Even though I was a little distraught at the time, I said, okay, I'll go business. We'll see where this goes. Looking back now, thank God I did. However, I do enjoy still giving back to the communities. Out of college, I really got an amazing opportunity to join the healthcare industry. Not necessarily about what you know, it's about who you know and what you do with those opportunities. When I started with this company, I knew nothing about healthcare. I knew nothing about managing people. I knew nothing about anything, frankly. But I got in there and I wanted to learn everything I possibly could. I took on the mindset that if I didn't know how the company operated in all aspects, how was I going to go out and be successful within that organization? So that's what I did. I got a great opportunity to have some mentors, some female mentors, some male mentors. It's fascinating how when people really realize that you want to learn, they're willing to teach you. So I got those great opportunities. Went out on my own. At the age of 27, I had clients that said, "Why are you working for these big companies? Go out on your own. We'll keep you busy." And sure enough, they did. But I got to a certain point of, what's next? Being a consultant forever? Or should I do something more? At that point, I found someone that I wanted to be a business partner with. His skills were totally different than mine. His strengths were my weaknesses. My weaknesses were his strengths. I thought this is going to be a perfect relationship. We continued to develop healthcare facilities throughout the U.S., but we also had an opportunity to start a company called Mentis Neurorehabilitation, and we were a rehab for traumatic brain injury patients. I have to tell you, we knew nothing about brain injury, but we thought we got a couple dimes to rub together. It sounded exciting. It was a niche market, and we realized that there was such a huge need. We decided, let's take the leap. Let's take the risk. Ignorance is bliss when you're young. I have to say that. I'm not really sure we knew what we were getting ourselves into, but we decided, hey, we've both been impacted in certain aspects with brain injury, and so let's try. Let's go down this path. The first thing we did was we got together the best, most amazing folks within that field, and we built a company. Fortunate enough, 7 years later, we took that company from not knowing what brain injury was to exiting to private equity in 2015. That process within itself was an amazing experience, very eye-opening, I'll tell you that. I was fairly young. I was pretty much the only female in the room, always. And it just really opened my eyes up to not everyone has the same opportunities that I've had, especially women. And so I thought once we went through that process, I wanted to get out there and really help as many women as I could live their best lives, both personally and professionally. I had been so engrossed in my career that I gave up a lot for my personal life. I didn't have a child until I was 37. And that was really at my old business partner's, encouragement of, hey, if you're going to have a child, you might want to do it. You're not getting any younger. And I thought, oh, no, I'm good. I'm good. I've got our business, and that was enough. Well, thank God I listened to him and went forward with that path. So really my goal with these podcasts are really to try to help everyone realize that, A, you're not alone. We all deal with the same trials and tribulations, but also maybe giving you some of my experience in regards to how I dealt with those trials and tribulations. and see if, we can make an impact for each other and build our own tribe of how can we support each other. So as you listen in, I'll have different topics and ones that I think are really important. I'm going to kind of throw out some of the lies that we were told when we were younger as how we had to act and how we had to behave. And, what's really the reality of those things. So as you listen in, you'll see things that you'll say, hey, that's me. I didn't realize, but hey, that happens to me as well. I just encourage you to listen with an open mind. I'm not the most warm and fuzzy individual. For anyone that knows me personally knows that. However, I'll tell you like it is. I'm very transparent and I'm very authentic. I think the only way that we're going to learn from each other is really being vulnerable and being authentic and telling our stories and some of the things that we've had to go through. So hope you listen in. The first thing we're going to talk about today is you can have it all. We always learned as kids, you can have it all. If you haven't heard it yet, that's complete and utter bullshit. You can't have it all, at least not at the same time. I used to think I wanted it all. I want everything. I want the perfect personal life. I want the perfect career. I want to continue to learn on a daily basis. And then I realized, oh my gosh, there's only so much time in the day. What do I want to have it all in right now? And where am I in my position of my life and in my career that I can focus the time and attention to achieve what I wanted before I went on to something else? I think we all, we make every January I make my goals for the year. Okay, I want to do this, I want to do that. And it's fascinating to me because the bigger the goals, the less achievable that they are in my world. I'll tell you that. Because then I start looking at them, I get so overwhelmed and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. So I give up and I go do something else. So I really want to talk about how do we break those things down? How do we come up with realistic goals that we can achieve? Let's get real with ourselves. Let's get real with our time. I've learned, unfortunately, the hard way recently, the one thing you never get back is time. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. How do we allocate our time to be able to achieve those things? Being your own advocate. I'm amazed with the women I talk to of how many high-powered women still have imposter syndrome, still say, oh, I mean, this is okay. I don't feel like I deserve this. If you're not advocating for yourself, nobody else is going to advocate for you. So what do you want? How do I get it? Get real with our goals, get real with our plan, get real with our time. So we're going to talk through some of those things. I went through a lot in my life in regards to, as I mentioned earlier, ignorance is bliss when you're young. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know the risks that were involved. All I knew is that I believed in myself. I believed that anything that I did, I was going to be successful because I was going to work that hard to make sure that that happened. And so again, understanding our own value is so important. We talk a lot about self-esteem, confidence, selfishness, all these words that we hear and we talk about. We want to break those down. There's a lot of things that we look at in life and say, hey, I don't deserve this because of X, Y, and Z, or I don't have time because I've got to give all my energy to everyone else and I've got to worry about everybody else's feelings. I encourage you to really take a look at that. Not everything in life is going to be perfect at once. And I think if we're trying to obtain that, we're just going to fail. So what do you want to be right now? Look at your circumstances. I look at the age of my kids a lot. I may want certain things, but is it the right time? In my career, I kind of gave up everything to have my career. And I have to tell you, looking back now, I wish I would have put more attention on my personal relationships than I did on my career. Because at the end of the day, now in my life, I find those so much more valuable than all the successes I've had around my businesses. So again, how do we look at things? How do we interpret things? My entrepreneurial journey was, it seemed like it was such an easy path. We made a lot of bad mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes along the way. And I tried to use those mistakes as learning opportunities. People say, oh my gosh, you've had this great success. Congratulations. I want to be just like you. And I asked them and I said, they're like, you're successful at everything. No, I'm not. We just never talk about our failures. I want to talk about some of my failures with you. I want you to understand that it's okay to fail. And what do you do with those failures? I've learned more from my failures than I have my successes. In regards to having it all, I believed as a child that I could have it all. I thought there was this great imagination of this life I was going to live, of having the perfect relationships, the perfect job, have the perfect kids. I mean, that's what we grow up believing that we want, and that's what we're going to have. I believe that. I spent a lot of years trying to attain that, which caused me a lot of unhappiness. It caused me a lot of guilt. It caused me a lot of angst and anxiety, because I always, when something was going really, really well, something else in my life was not. And I don't know if it was me trying to kick up chaos, because that's what I was used to living in as a child, but it seemed like I was always trying to chase a rabbit that wasn't there, and that's having it all. So I want to make sure that as you're listening to this, you don't go down that same path that I went down of spending years and years trying to achieve those things that aren't obtainable. The ultimate goal is happiness. But what is happiness? I love certain things about my life, and there's always areas of opportunity. I think as we get older, we continue to grow. And we'll talk a little bit more about dumb versus smart growth later. But, we continue to realize that not everything has to be perfect at the same time. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner. I'm a mom. I'm a softball coach. I'm a dance studio owner. I'm all of those things, right? And I'm trying to figure out how to make it all happen. And so by saying I can have it all and trying to attain this ultimate goal of this fictitious picture in my head that I was taught as a child just creates a lot of anxiety and a lot of angst for me and sadness, because it's like, I can't get it. So I finally at one point had an epiphany of letting it go and saying, hey, you know what? It's not always going to be perfect, but I've got it all over here right now, and I'm going to hold on, and I'm going to enjoy the small victories and the small successes, because I know that at some point that other side's going to work its way out. And that may be where I find my positive energy and my happiness and my joy. So again, I just want to encourage you, be careful of the things that we were taught as kids, because I think that we live in a very different world now. When we were kids, a lot of us lived very different lifestyles in our families. Now we've got, I've got a career, I've got, kids, I've got, trying to be the PTO parent. I'm trying to do it all. And so we got to learn to give ourselves some self-compassion and let go of that guilt and just figure out, hey, you know what? Some days that's okay. We're going to have bad days and we're going to have good days. Balance, I don't even like to call it balance anymore. What I call it is work-life integration. That's what it is. How can I integrate my work and my personal life and still be able to maintain and be positive in both, but yet achieve some of the goals that I've set? That goes back to setting realistic goals. My goal yesterday was I just need to make it to the grocery store to make sure that we have stuff to have dinner for the rest of the week. Now, it sounds so stupid, but that's a great goal to have. Everybody's like, oh, that's a stupid goal. But is it? We've got 5,000 things coming at us at one time. What do I need right now to make my life easier or the life of my family easier? Breaking those things down. And I'm not saying to minimize our career objectives or our parenting objectives. It's just really being able to take some of the pressure off us of achieving these huge goals. And what do we need now where we are in our lives, and start living in the present. Those small goals will reach you to that larger goal, I guarantee. That's what it's done for me, and I'm hoping that can do for you as well. So, I'll tell you some of the stories about not being integrated. As I mentioned earlier in my life, I was all work. I was 24/7. I felt like if I was going to achieve my work objectives, my goals, I was going to be on call 24/7 all the time. Well, I hate to admit it, but this went on for probably 18 years. I never took a trip over 2 days because I was scared to death to be away from the office. I didn't have children until I was 37. And again, that was because my business partner said, hey, the clock's ticking, you might want to do it. I gave up a lot of my personal relationships with people that meant the world to me. My best friend, I didn't go to her wedding. Why? Because I was too busy at work. Well, we've been friends since we were 12, and sometimes you're in the mix and you don't realize how your actions really impact those people that are most important to you. I didn't spend a lot of time with my family, my parents. Unfortunately, my mother just unexpectedly passed away 2 months ago. Thank God I realized 10 years ago that she and my relationships with them were more important than anything that was going on in my job. And I made time for her because I expected her to live another 20 years. Unfortunately, she didn't. And so those last 10 years were so invaluable for me and for her and for my family as a whole. And I don't want anyone to be in the position of saying, oh gosh, I wished I would have. So again, just little nuggets that I'm hoping you can take from some of my experiences that will help you live a healthier life. If we would have been having this conversation 15 years ago, it wouldn't be the same conversation, because I'd say, no, work 24/7. That's all you want to do in life. That's the most important. That's how you look at your success in life, is by how much money you make. What's your title? Do you own a business? Those were the key performance indicators that we used for our lives. Now, I feel like it's such a different world, and I look at my purpose. I look at my relationships. I look at my trust people have in me. I look at the things not only in my personal, but in my professional lives, and how I've really evolved as a leader too. And a lot of those things that I've deployed in my personal life, I've done the same thing in my professional life. And trust me, you can talk to some of the people that knew me. Some of the folks here in my own office have been with me for 15 plus years. They'll tell you how that change has happened over the last 15 years and how I'm so much more different now than I was 15 years ago. And some of that we'll get into a little bit further when we talk more about the leadership aspect. But some of my stories I love to tell. So let me tell you the story about my best friend's wedding. My best friend and I, Jen, we've been friends since we were 12. I had moved to Houston after my parents got divorced. My mother got remarried. I entered into a junior high at 8th grade, which, as we all know, can be some of the most challenging times of your life. I met some great folks, and I met my best friend, Jen. We had been through everything together. As some of you know, that those friends that you grew up with, they know everything about you, the good, the bad, the ugly. We kind of floated away during college because she went to TCU, I went to A&M, but always kept in touch. After we got out of college, I started my career. And as I mentioned, I was all about my career. I wanted to work 24/7. I was on call. Back in the days, we had pagers. People would page you constantly. It was awesome. I loved every day of it. But what I sacrificed was my relationships with some of my friends. I'd see them here and there, periodically. I would disappear for a year. I wouldn't talk to anyone. Obviously, your friends become some of the folks that you work with, but those are different than your friends that you have, that you grow up with in every aspect. So my best friend's getting married. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be there. I ended up not going. Something came up with work. I chose not to go. I thought, oh, she won't mind. Not a big deal. I didn't realize how devastating that was. Here I was, her best friend. I didn't attend her wedding. It was a pretty significant blow to her and to me. It really impacted both of us for years. One day she finally sat me down and said, hey, look, if we're going to continue to be friends, we need to be real friends. And that means you can't disappear. We need to be there for each other. Well, I have to tell you, Jen's still my ride or die. I think as we get older, we start to realize what's important. And I realized that my relationship with Jen was super important, and I wanted to be there, and I wanted to be for those occasions. She was there when my daughter was born. We try to do as much as we can together. Now our kids are growing up together. And so again, we all make choices in life about what's important. Most of this shit just doesn't matter. But what does matter at the end of the day is how you feel as a person, how you value yourself, how you put yourself first, but also what brings you positive energy in every aspect. And those personal relationships go a long way compared to, am I going to either go to attend this meeting or not attend this meeting? Had a great situation happen a couple weeks ago. Was talking with a peer that was really struggling about whether she should go and attend her daughter's championship basketball game. She had flown to Houston for some meetings. She's like, I don't know if I should do it. And I said, look, I hear you and I've been there, but I guarantee no one's going to remember you missing that meeting. But your daughter will always remember that you attended that game. Believe it or not, she texted me the next day and she said, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe this. I went. And I said, how'd it go? She goes, it was absolutely amazing. She's like, thank you so much. Sometimes we just need permission. We feel guilty. So we need someone to say, hey, it's okay. It's okay to go ahead and take that time. It's okay to go to your kid's game. Nobody's going to look at you different. And if they do, maybe that's not the right place to be. In today's world, it's very different than it was 10, 15 years ago. As a leader, I try to look at flexibility for my staff. What's the best environment that I can provide to them so they can live their best life, which in turn is both personally and professionally, that can help them achieve their goals, but also help the company or the organization achieve our goals. And I have to tell you, I have seen significant increase in performance, in revenues, in successes because of that mindset. Sometimes you've got to advocate for yourself and be your own cheerleader and say, hey, these are the things that I need to do to live my best life. If you're positive in that aspect, it usually flows over to the professional as well. So let's talk about one of the lies that we're led to believe. And that is, if we take time for ourselves, we're not going to advance in our careers. If we choose to go to that practice or take that vacation or go to my kid's game, we're shown as we're lazy, we're not committed to the company. That's a lie. I think we tell ourselves that to make ourselves believe that what we're doing is the right thing to do, which is not the case. Most employers, leaders look at staff or look at employees and say, hey, how can you be your best self? And working in that realm. So if there's something that you want to do for your family that makes you a better person, we realize it's going to make you a better person at work. It's going to make you happier. It's going to make you more productive. The lie of, hey, if you don't show up, if you're not on call 24/7, you can't go on a vacation unless you take your phone. Look, we all need an opportunity to just kind of relax, to kind of clear our minds. At the end of the day, it makes us better in every aspect. That's just like parenting. I'll just say this, a lot of people think I'm selfish. I'm not selfish when it comes to parenting. I love my kids. However, there are some days that I'm coming home and I've got 9 million things going through my head, and I just need 5 minutes to sit in my car and just kind of decompress before I walk in the house, for a couple different reasons. Number one, it helps me kind of process everything that's happened that day so I don't take it out on everybody in my house. Secondarily, when I get out of that car, I know I'm a better person because I've taken a few minutes to decompress. A lot of us do that on the way home from work, hey, how do I decompress on the way home? Do I call a friend and just chit chat? Do I listen to music and sing on the loud, as loud as I possibly can? Whatever that task is for you, take a few moments for yourself. It's okay. It makes us better in the long run. I know that when I walk in the house after a crazy day, that sometimes everybody in my path gets the wrath of it, right? But I know that if I can sit there and go, okay, let's think through this. Let's just take a few breaths, process that. I can walk in, and then when I see my kids and they're so happy to see me, I'm happy to see them. And I'm not worried about what happened at the office because at the end of the day, they don't understand that. They want me and my attention. So we talk about guilt all the time. Well, okay, I worry about the quality of time I'm spending with my kids, not the quantity of time. I can be there all the time. That's great. But if I'm not present with them, am I really there? Is that good enough for them? It's not, because they recognize that. Look, I grew up with my oldest, she's 13 now. When she was younger, 5, 6 years old, she would tell me all the time, Mommy, put your phone down. Mommy, put your phone down. And to me, I'm like, oh, no, I'm really busy. I'm really important. I've got to handle this at 7:30 at night while we're in the middle of dinner because that's how important I am, right? I wasn't that important. There was no need. But I guarantee you, my daughter will tell you all about it now because she remembers it, right? But nobody else remembers that I answered that email or made that phone call right then and there, that it was so critical, that the place was burning down. Nobody cares. But again, that relationship, and I had to learn that with my daughter of, hey, when I'm with her, I've got to put the phone down. My best friend says the same thing. We'll talk about Jen again. Jen drives her nuts. We'll be in places. Jen, her life is very different than mine. I have a high-powered career. I'm really important. Well, in her mind, wait a minute, am I not that important? And I had to realize that what I was doing is showing the people that I loved and cared about the most that they were the most important thing to me. Learn from some of my mistakes. We think we're that important, but we're really not. And I'm not saying, hey, look, you should turn your phone off at 5 o'clock when you walk through the door. Like, that's not realistic. We all know that. But what I am saying is try to be this present in those times. I try really hard to put boundaries around things. I'm not the best at it. I'm going to tell you, I can sit here and preach all day long, and I'll be lying to tell you that I'm an expert at boundaries, because I'm not. But I try really hard to be present and to really focus on certain things at certain times when I know that it matters the most. It's just about really making choices as to how do I want to be my best self at work, my best self at home, my best self for me. We spend so much time trying to be everything to everyone. What about us? How can I find a balance for me? I guess until I got much older, I didn't realize how important it was for me to have time for myself. I thought that, okay, well, if I'm hanging out with my kids and doing, going to practice or watching their games or doing whatever, that was my time. But that wasn't my time. That was my time with them. So I figured, okay, well, I'm in the office. Nobody's around. So that's my time, right? There's nobody here. Nobody's talking to me. But I'm in the middle of doing emails and trying to catch up, always running that rat race. I realized that really wasn't my time. 2 years ago, I started something that changed my life. I started taking an hour every morning for myself. It was my meeting time, just me. And I put it on my calendar and I said, this is my time. I don't break meetings with other people. I definitely don't break meetings with clients. I don't break meetings with family. Why am I continuing to reschedule my meetings with me? So I made that a priority for myself. And in that 1 hour, I would go walk. I would just go walk. I'd walk 4 to 6 miles. I'd go walk. I'd listen to podcasts. I would listen to books. I'd listen to music some days. I would talk to my friends on the phone that I hadn't talked to in forever. But it was my time, and it gave me the opportunity to really balance myself. If I had that time of my day, and everybody's going to say, oh, I don't have an hour. I don't have 30 minutes. I can barely get through the day. I hear you. Same way. I mean, one minute I wake up, it's kid, drop off. Work, pick kid up, go back. I get it. But how important are you? And I had to realize that I was just as valuable and important as everyone else around me. And so that's one of the things that I did that really helped me balance myself. For a time, I was doing it every single day. I've got a little off of it. I'm trying to get back into it. But I see my mental state where it really helps me, grounds me, and makes me a better person across all aspects of my life. So I know you're saying, hey, this all sounds great, Chantell, but I'm listening to this podcast. I'm doing 5,000 things right now. I'm driving down the freeway, trying to pick up my kids, doing a work call. How am I going to do it all? How am I going to come up with this balance, this work-life integration that you're referencing? Great question. I don't have all the answers, but I'll give you some of the tips that I've used in the past that have been successful for me. One of the things, like we talked about, is really getting real with your goals. We have a tendency to make these huge goals in regards to, I'm going to be successful and rich. Okay, great. Don't we all want to be that, right? But how are we going to get there? I always say, make a small goal. Be very specific in what you want to, and maybe do 2 or 3. Don't do a ton. Do 3 goals. I think the other thing is we have a list of 15 goals, personal, professional, all aspects. 3 things. 3 things that you want to do. And again, be specific. But then you also say, well, how am I supposed to fit this in? Again, I'm doing 18,000 things right now. Look at your time. We all do things in life that we don't want to do. We all say yes to things, and we're going to have a whole nother episode on why do we think we always have to say yes to everything. Look at your calendar for the next week. Pick 1 or 2 things and say, I don't really need to be doing this. Why am I doing this? And reschedule. Cancel it. Why? Because maybe you could take that hour and it could be better utilized by working on some of the things that you want to work on. And then coming up with a plan. And that's really about going back to your time. So again, everything's intertwined to a certain degree, but you have to be committed to doing it. Look, we try to eat the whole elephant at one time. It never works. Small victories take us and lead us to the path that we want to live on. And so again, I just encourage you, just take a few minutes, and it doesn't have to be long, elaborate. Don't write a thesis. Write down 2 or 3 bullet points. These are some of the things that I'd really like to do. Carve out 5 minutes for myself every day to just read the newspaper, something like that. And then look at your time. Make a meeting with yourself. Hold yourself to that meeting. Why is everybody else more important than you? You should be the most important person in your life. I just encourage you to look at that and see if that helps you reach your ultimate goals. You can have it all, but you can't have it all at the same time. So what I would encourage you to do is Don't put so much pressure on yourself to have it all right now. There may be situations where, work is really heavy this week. You got to do a ton of stuff at work. So maybe your personal side's going to have to sacrifice a little bit here and there. But maybe next week it's different. How do you get that work-life integration? It's not going to always ebb and flow. It's not always going to be 50-50, and that's okay. Because like we said, you can have it all, but you just probably can't have it all at the same time. Look at that over the next couple weeks and say, okay, that's right. Work is really heavy this week, so I'm going to take a little bit extra time next week to focus on X, Y, Z. You can have it all, but stop believing the lie that you can have it all right now. You can have it all at once, because that doesn't exist. Thanks so much for listening today. I'm super excited about taking this journey with you guys. I've been wanting and so passionate about doing this for such a long time. I'm excited to share it with you guys. I know we've got a lot of amazing episodes coming up, and stay with us and we'll see you soon.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Get Real, Get Results. Now get off your ass, get out there, and enjoy the life that you want to live. We're here if you need guidance, and until next time, do your best, enjoy the small victories, and stay unstoppable. And don't forget to visit chantellpreston.com for coaching or keynote booking information. And remember, you have to get real to get results.